Buckle up, everyone, and welcome to Carpool Rugby League, a show where three rugby league tragics are talking everything rugby league on your way to or from work. I'm Graham.
I'm the chameleon.
Welcome aboard and on with the show. Yes, it's Tuesday. You know what that means. We've got another episode of Carpool Rugby League coming your way. Massive edition tonight. We didn't get a chance to get an episode out last week. So this week's our big Grand Final review. We've got all the talk about the 2023 Grand Final. We'll look back at one of the most spectacular Grand Finals in history. We'll talk about that. Obviously, the other games on the day, the NRLW, the state championship, or the reserve grade Super Bowl as we like to call it. We're talking extracurricular activities outside of rugby league and the impact that might have on the NRL. And also too, we've actually got footy coming up this week. We've got the Pacific Championships all starting, so we'll talk the latest in regards to team news with a focus, as you'd imagine, on the Kangaroos and all the other teams that will be playing this week. It's unbelievable. We're heading towards mid-October and we've still got plenty of footy to talk about. I don't know how to throw to you, Griffo. I think it's just one of those situations where there's going to be so much for you to say, but I'm just going to throw it to you in this way. You must be absolutely thrilled with how the Grand Final turned out, because it was an absolutely thrilling game, and the result was in doubt right up until the end. It was a great game.
Yeah, first, thanks, Graham. I'm not emotional at the moment like I have been for a while. I've been a bit of a tear machine, thinking about it, watching bits and pieces. I've been listening to a lot of stuff. Apparently there are other podcasts out there and other organizations who talk about this sort of stuff. So, but if I go back to the night, all week I didn't watch too much stuff, didn't listen to too much stuff on the podcast, on in the media. I wasn't pumped at all. When we did our Grand Final preview. I obviously talked about it, but even on the day, I wasn't pumped at all. I just got to the ground. Still, it wasn't till the pre-match entertainment, which I thought was really good. Some have criticized it, but being at the ground and the crowd, it pumped the crowd up, and I certainly got pumped up just before the game, and then the game started. Penrith dominated the first half, but their attack was really clunky, and the first try was basically the soccer own goal. I said to my mate, I said that's a rugby version of the own goal there, with Herbie Farmworth leaping up from the dropout from Reynolds. And I talked about in the preview, so I was listening to it a couple of nights ago, the fact that this was an area of advantage for the Broncos. The aerial supremacy that they have. Unfortunately, Herbie got up there. He probably could have caught the ball, and he'll look back at that and think, why did I not just catch the ball? No one else was going for it. He just knocked it back, and Mitch Kenny couldn't believe it. Just thank you, Herbie, and just fell off the line. And if anyone had, and again, I don't bet, but I'm sure Mitch Kenny would have been at long odds to be the first try scorer in the grand final.
Yeah, fair point.
His first try of the year, his second of his career. So it doesn't happen too often, but yeah, you could almost put it down as an own goal or an own try from Herbie, who had a really good game. And I think he's a great player, Herbie Farmworth. And Penrith, they controlled the field position. But as I said, their attack was clunky. There were a couple of opportunities out wide where the ball just didn't get to the winger. And a few times they did have an overlap. And then the Broncos, to their credit, scored one right on half-time. Anyone who saw it on any screen isn't convinced it was a try from Flegler. Get that out. Thomas Flegler. But the referee gave it a try, and he was closer than anyone. So they went in 8-6, and I thought, gee, we haven't really dominated the scoreboard, but we've sort of been in control. But the Broncos, that would have given them a lot of encouragement because they just kept dropping the ball early. You've got to think part of that was grand final nerves. They made a lot of mistakes. Cobbo was one who made a mistake. I shouldn't single him out because there was half a dozen of them coming up with errors that were, I guess it seemed like they were nervous in that first half. Come out in the second half, and they just went berserk. The Broncos, led by Ezra Mam, who possibly had the greatest grand final performance of a non-Clive Churchill winner. He just tore the Panthers to shreds, and then with his pace, couldn't get Dylan Edwards for the first one, couldn't get across to make the tackle after Mam broke the line. Very soon after that, he did it again. And the third time, it was Reece Walsh putting on a massive step to beat Nathan Cleary, make the break and pass inside to Mam. And the Broncos were on absolute fire, scoring 18 unanswered points in the second half. I think it might have been about 17 or 18 minutes to go, they were up by 16 points. And I'd written the Panthers off. I just thought, I just didn't want to see him get embarrassed, because that's how it was going, the way the Broncos were just literally tearing him apart out on the left-hand side of the Broncos, right-hand side of the Panthers. That's where all the action was.
And there's a lot of people there who I've talked to, just to chime in here before we get too far along. There's a lot of people I've talked to, including Penrith fans, who at that point in the game, that 55th minute, when Mam scored that third try, were thinking, oh, geez, let's just hope it's not a belting. And I was getting text messages from my friends that are Penrith supporters saying, hope they don't run away with it, Mam for Churchill medal. Yeah, this is from Penrith supporters. I've got another one. Actually, Michael, who'll be listening to this, who does our music, he actually told me after the third try, he turned it off and went, I'll go, brush my teeth and go to bed. And he had to think about it while he was brushing his teeth, and he thought, oh, maybe we're still a chance. And he turned it back on, and all of a sudden Leota was going over, which is what we're getting to here. This is one of the greatest comebacks in rugby league history, let alone grand final history.
Yeah, I just thought, I don't know, what we need something to change the momentum of the game. So we saw Isaiah Yeo go off to that for HIA. Scott Sorensen was HIA. Jerome Luai was out of the game with his shoulder injury. And I thought there were no hope because there was literally nothing happening. I can't put it down to a specific turning point that was able just to halt if not change momentum. But I know there was a drop ball from the Broncos, went back and Crichton dived on it deep in Panthers territory. I think that was before Moses Leota went over for his try. But as you said, they got it downfield. And Nathan Cleary broke the line. I think he put a palm on Kurt Capewell, it might have been. And a former Penrith player, of course, played in the grand final victory over the Rabbitohs, Kurt Capewell. And inside was Moses Leota, who was the only guy there. And he went over to score and added at that stage what I thought, well, that's a little bit of respectability to the score. So that made it 26-14. I still wasn't really thinking victory. Then we see and this guy will go down as the great Stephen Crichton. We talk about the great Brett Kenny scoring. I think he scored 2 tries in 3 grand finals in a row in the early 80s for Para in their winning streak. Stephen Crichton outpowered his opposite Katoni Staggs, and a couple of other Broncos overran him, and he scores out wide. Cleary puts it over. Both kickers were no one missed a kick, and both kickers had some tough ones from the sideline. Credit to both Adam Reynolds and Nathan Cleary on their goal kicking. But that took it back to a 4-point gap, and I still didn't really think we're going to win. Like, I thought, okay, we're sort of in it, but Nathan Cleary, with not a lot of time left in the game, maybe 3 minutes or so, he produced what will be replayed for while ever the game is played, a match-winning try where he, all night, they had been shifting it. When he got the ball, it went wider. This time, however, thought, no, now's the time. So he steps left, he beats one. He steps left, he beats a second. He steps left, he beats a third. And then he beats Reece Walsh, who was inside, but sort of didn't come across to cover. What, when you look at it now, was quite a large hole in the Broncos' defense. And that leveled the scores, but you knew when he scored under the post, he ain't going to miss the kick. There was still probably about a minute and a half to go after that, but the feeling was pretty much the same for most supporters. And I sat in the members ticketed area. Unfortunately, there was a whole heap of Broncos in there as well. I don't know if they pressed the wrong button, read the tickets, or they just didn't care. Maybe their tickets had been exhausted. Thought, okay, we'll get some in the Panthers area. But there was a lot of Broncos in that supporters area, and they were pretty happy for much of that second half. But as it went on, Penrith got the ball back. They went downfield. Broncos got the ball early on in that last 6. I think it was Reece Walsh passed inside, and I think it might have been Scott Sorensen who intercepted the ball, and you knew then the game was over. Stunned was my reaction. Just looking around, like, and I wasn't the only. There's a lot of faces that were just like, "What have we just seen? Did this just happen?" It was literally unbelievable, and you're sort of watching the game, and Cleary goes through it. We're watching history here being created, and when you think about that, like, a lot of people, for a lot of people, rugby league, it's just a game. It means not a great deal, but for people who are passionate about it, like any sport, like it's sport, it is what it is, but it means so much to so many, and like it was unbelievable. It literally was unbelievable what we just witnessed, and I thought, I'm here watching greatness. Like that's how I felt. That comeback that I didn't see coming. I don't know that anyone saw it coming, to be fair. It looked done and dusted when Man went over for his third try. Not just the fact that the scoreboard had blown out somewhat, but was just the manner in which
there's a lot of momentum behind Brisbane at that point.
Exactly. I mean,
it was
the
one
Broncos
that
were
10
in
minutes
absolute full flight, like the best that they could produce. And again, I did say that the Broncos, they had really two areas of advantage. One was in the air, which I don't think they really exploited at all. But the other one was their speed. And they certainly used that. And yeah, I got to credit Ezra Mam. He was absolutely brilliant what he did in a grand final. But he still goes down as someone who didn't win on the night. He couldn't have done any more. And he's shown just how good he is. He's still a very, very young man. And he obviously puts himself in the spotlight for when I think he's able to negotiate on come November 1. I can't see the Broncos letting him go, but they're going to have to pay a lot more for him than what they may have previously, because we are talking about a very special talent. He used to do it apparently in the Q Cup, but that was the Q Cup. He's only sort of really in his second year of full-time NRL, and he's an absolute he's a gem. So the Broncos have they've got the makings, obviously, of a powerhouse. For the Panthers to overcome that, I still shake my head. I know I saw it. It happened. I've relived it obviously a few times, and I'll watch that game many times in the future. Yeah, it was special. I've never seen anything like it, and I don't think I'll ever see anything like it again. Going into the game, everyone was sort of saying this could be one of the great grand finals. We've got two teams pretty much at the peak of their powers. One that's the championship team, the other that's very much on the rise with amazing talent in their ranks. We saw, well, I think it's, I think it can go down as the greatest grand final. For those who don't agree, that's okay, but it's up there with the greatest grand finals. It was, if you not someone who is a rugby league follower, but if you watch that, I think you might be now a rugby league follower, and
that doesn't hook you, nothing will.
Someone who we both know, Graham Taco, he actually sent me a message. He actually watched it. He hates sport. He don't like rugby league, but he actually sent me a message. He actually watched it, so maybe the NRL has a new fan. But it was just an amazing night. I wasn't sitting with my daughters. They were in a different part of the ground, and I sort of text him. I said, look, come down here. The players will probably be over. This is sort of where they end up because it's the Panthers supporters bay. This was text me back. So I know our tickets aren't. I said, look, they open the gates. You'll be able to get in. So yeah, it was great to share the afterwards with them. Ended up staying at one of my door. We all sort of stayed together that night, and some of us sort of watched it again. It was just a fabulous night. And then in the morning went to the celebrations at Panthers Stadium. No controversy really this time around. It was reported to the crowd there that unfortunately James Fisher-Harris had come down with laryngitis, so he wasn't able to speak this time to the masses. In fact, none of the players did, and I think that it might have been for the best. But
yeah,
I mean, it was just a
before
fabulous...
he adopted a few more sons.
Yes, yeah. Big family man.
Yeah. All of his sons he's got a body. He's collecting it. He's got a few over the past few years with these premierships, but
yeah. What are your thoughts? I mean, you're neutral, Graham.
Well,
what were you thinking?
I was look. I talked about it on the podcast last week. It was one of those, the week before, I should say. We're a couple of weeks removed now. It was one of those situations where I felt Penrith would win, but I knew that if any team could take it, would be Brisbane. And I'll be honest with you, early on in the game, I was worried for the Broncos. I thought they made a lot of errors. I think the Penrith settled into the game a lot better, and I felt early on that those errors were going to catch up with Brisbane. And it wasn't until that 10 minutes where Ezra Mam scored those 3 tries where it was sort of weird. It went from being are Brisbane going to be able to stay in this yet? They're still in the game because they got that try, to having that feeling, Brisbane's going to win this. I was like, Brisbane's going to win this. They have all the momentum. Penrith looked like they were on the back foot, and it was something, that 10 minutes is something we'd never seen done to Penrith before in, not only grand final, not only finals, but a game. And I'll be honest with you, I thought the talk was, with the people I was watching, was, Brisbane's gonna do it here. And then it was just like, you felt like an idiot, because why would you write off this Penrith team? There is nothing that we have seen over the past 4 years that would lead you to think that this Penrith team wasn't capable of coming back or wouldn't come back. This next period from Penrith was phenomenal, because there were people starting to, the text messages were coming, the talk was happening about that corridor, in defence where Ezra Mam was making those, they were scoring those tries, getting beaten for speed, and talking about, players that normally wouldn't make those mistakes and so on and so forth. And the one player I wanted to mention, I know we'll talk about him a fair bit tonight, and he scored that next try, which you go, okay, it saw that feeling like, yeah, they got a try, but, will it get him in or not? It was Leota. I thought he was massive for them on the night. Not only because he scored that try, I mean, he was there on the spot and backing up, but he has just been so big for Penrith, and I'm just glad that people are giving him some of the credit he deserves, because I knew coming out of this that, deservingly so, the talk would be about the Churchill medalist and Nathan Cleary. The other points I wanted to make here about the game was, you talked about turning points. I actually believe that the main turning point in this game, and the point where I felt as though, hang on, here they come, was, I feel like it was after the Leota try, but it might have been before the Crichton try. The 40-20 from Nathan Cleary.
I think that was after the first try, yeah.
Yeah. That was a huge point, because that's when you start to just sit up and you're sitting on your seat like the meerkat looking at the TV going, hang on, here we go. The master hasn't yet, started to play, so to speak. So that for me was a huge turning point. And then it just kept coming. Like you said, Stephen Crichton, I got a stat here. And I'd be interested to see, it wouldn't be something that would have happened very often. I'd have to look into it to see, obviously you'd have to go back a very long time. But I'm positive that he scored a try now in 4 consecutive grand finals.
Oh, yeah, that's as mentioned before. That's correct.
Yeah,
Right?
like, I'm just saying, like,
I don't
I knew
think it's being done.
he had scored and that, like, I'm not quite sure about that one, but yeah, like the other stats that you may not have stolen my thunder with, you talked about Penrith being a big comeback. Our stats checker here at Carpool Rugby League has it as the biggest comeback in NRL Grand Final history.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's overtaken I think the one it overtook was Melbourne in 99 against St George. I think that was a 14-point deficit overcome on that day. So, just when you think this team can't break any more records, they continue to break the records. A lot of people are talking about this 15-minute game, this 15-minute period at the end for the Panthers. And those who don't necessarily watch a lot of rugby league, on the surface it might look like, oh, they were down and out, and then they just, went and blitzed them for 15 minutes. This team, Penrith Panthers, ended the night with a 97% completion rate, 37 out of 38. What we always talk about is Penrith just doing the little things right and strangling the other team. It was amazing how Brisbane looked like they had so much momentum. They had the run of play. They were up by, 16 points. And then in a matter of 10 minutes, I'll be honest with you, no one felt as though Brisbane had anything left in the tank when Nathan Cleary scored that try. You knew they were going to get the ball back, but the feeling wasn't, we've got to watch out what they do this next set. The feeling was Cleary's just scored that winning try. And the biggest thing for me is this running game that has really developed. We've talked about it possibly being as a result of Luai being out and Nathan Cleary taking the line on more and running the ball. This change in his game where he's taking the line on and running the ball more has culminated in this exact moment where that running game has won a grand final. That taking on the line, short, 10 out from the line, 15 metres out from the line, using his phenomenal footwork, his skill, just phenomenal. I thought he was deservedly the Churchill Medal winner. Only the third person, I should say, to win it twice. And who knows, he could win it again before he's done. Dylan Edwards, another one we obviously have to mention. We'll talk about him when we talk about the Kangaroos later, but phenomenal effort as always. 296 metres. I think we've got him down for our stats. So I'm with you. I think it's one of the great grand finals. I think it'll go down in history as one of the great grand finals. I'm thinking that moment at the end there, this is the next generation along, and I know I'm starting to feel a bit old now when it's another generation, but we're 25 years, a little bit more now on from that Darren Albert try for Newcastle. This next generation, this is going to be the last gasp try that they remember to win a game, and a phenomenal individual effort. So
Graham,
the Brisbane Broncos, they were good. They were
fantastic.
It was a great game. We had the right two teams, but geez, that Penrith, this Penrith team, they're something else. They're, and I know, we've only just gotten the three-peat in, but I feel as though, what? Yeah, there's a few key players that might be moving on, but very early prediction. There's nothing that'll. It's not a silly prediction to think that they could go 4.
Yeah, we'll come to that. I didn't think they were going to go 3, but
with 15 minutes, with 25 minutes ago, a lot of people didn't think so.
Yeah, no, I didn't think they were going to go 3 at the start of the year, really, but we'll talk about that later. When Shano joins us, we're just going to take us back to. We went for a walk early in the year, the three of us, and we talked a lot of footy. It was one of the great walks. I really enjoyed it, but we'll come back to that when Shano's with us. But I haven't looked at the stats until right now. A couple of you mentioned earlier the 97% completion rate by the Panthers. There was only one Mitch Kenny drop ball after he'd made a good run, actually, and when he hit the ground, he lost the ball. But the Broncos, in contrast, they did turn ball over a lot, mainly in the first half. They didn't drop it all that much in the second half, but yeah, they had a nervous start, you'd have to say. There's a stat here that if it was just you didn't know it was a grand final and you didn't know a few things, you think what? And that is that the missed tackles. Where are we? Sorry, I had it earlier. Missed tackles. Penrith, 61 missed tackles.
Yeah.
Now, in any game, if you think you're missing 61 tackles, you're not winning a game. The Broncos missed 57.
Yeah.
It could be a record number of missed tackles. That is not to say these teams can't defend, because they are the two best defensive teams in the NRL currently. What it does say is that, they're both, pretty good attacking sides. But in some cases, those missed tackles were a result of sheer brilliance, like when Mam did some of the things he did. Yeah. In other cases, it was guys rushing up and missing a tackle, not necessarily the defender sort of making a big line break or anything. But but that's interesting to see that number of missed tackles.
It is interesting on there because, people, while we're looking at the stats, the Broncos had 6 line breaks to 3, and we know that there were times where they got through, and we were talking prior to the game about the speed of the Broncos, and even still, just to put it in simple terms, scoring 24 points against the Panthers is an excellent effort. They don't usually concede, 4 tries in a game.
No, their average is about 12 against per game.
Yep. And that just shows, I suppose, the quality of the Broncos. But another thing, too, we talked about, and I was really big on, was the speed of the play, the ball, in the middle of the field. And there were a few times where there was some nice quick play the balls, and Ezra Mann made the most of those. The Panthers did a really good job, I thought, of controlling the speed of the ruck, especially when they would do that, what I would call that, 1-2 punch go forward that they often do, with Haas taking the first hit up, Carrigan taking the second, and then, the backs floating in, and usually that's Reece Walsh, and if he gets an early ball while off a quick play the ball, that's where that speed was utilised. Penrith were very aware to that. Penrith really controlled that ruck in the middle of the field, controlled that speed, and that's what made it difficult for Reece Walsh to get that early ball and go through. And part of me through the game was thinking this isn't sort of working, and then Ezra Mann actually popped up and become an option, and they really benefited from that little bit of change of tack. But I think the thing that gets lost in all of this as well, when we talk about the stats and whatnot, and we talk about these big moments, is the role of the coaches. And I'll come back to the big moments, because obviously we've got have every week we've got Griffo's grab, and we'd be interested to see which of those big moments we talked about earlier gets the official grab. But just also too, from a Penrith point of view, Ivan Cleary, the Penrith Panthers, we've talked about the players, we talked about the determination, the adversity, the coaching. I mean, a lot of credit to Kevin Walters and what he's done with this Broncos side, but Ivan Cleary's run at the Panthers over the past few years has really cemented him as one of the great coaches. And you can actually see, when you really break the game down and you look at the little 1%ers that add up to a big thing, that a lot of them are coaching 1%ers, and there's systems in place, not necessarily players just playing off the cuff. There's nothing that Penrith does by accident.
Ivan Cleary, wow. For a long time, he sort of had the monkey on his back, a little bit like Brian Smith, in the thought process was, he's a good coach, but he can't actually get a team over the line to win a premiership. And he lost 2 grand finals, one with the Warriors when he was quite young in his coaching career, but he did a fabulous job with the Warriors when he was there. He came over to the Panthers then, and probably nowhere near the success, obviously, that we've seen in his second coming. He was sacked from his job at the Panthers and replaced by Anthony Griffin. And then Griffin had a falling out with Gus Gould and the chairman, I believe, the previous chairman, Dave, and my apologies for forgetting his name, but he was the one that had negotiated for Ivan to come back, sort of without any involvement of Gus Gould in that negotiation process. But my apologies to that man, because Dave, I think, could have been O'Neill.
Burner?
No, Dave O'Neill, I think the guy was, who was the previous chairman of the board. He's not on there at the moment, and if I've got his name wrong, I'm very apologetic. But he's a guy that has got to, take or be given credit for getting.
I think it might have been Dave O'Neill. Yeah.
And obviously there was a massive amount of controversy about that, and we know some very salty, not quite the word, but there was hatred from the Tigers supporters, and some who still bear those grudges. But they've got to acknowledge that this man is a very good coach. He's been coaching now for, a lot of games. In 3 different NRL clubs, he's coached as the head coach. I heard on another podcast today that he was part of the Roosters coaching system when they won the grand final in 2002, I think it was. Underneath Ricky Stewart, they had a number of assistant coaches, including John Cartwright, Dean Pay, and one other, I think, that might have went on to be an NRL coach as well. So I didn't realize that he was involved in the Roosters coaching staff. That would have been just after he finished playing. He represented the Warriors in their first grand final, which was in the early part of the 2000s. And so he's been in rugby league, of course, for many, many years, played with Manly, played with the Bears, played with the Warriors, played with the Roosters, and he's coached at 3 clubs. So he's had extensive experience, and we're seeing that he is at the absolute top of his game in preparing a successful rugby league, not just a rugby league team, but a club. I mean, as a Panthers supporter, I sort of got to pinch myself, because this is sort of stuff like dreams. These are dreams.
Yeah.
And
you'd be looking back on this era too, because you made a good point, not to cut you off there, but just to lead to the next bit. When you were talking about him being compared, people will talk about him and Brian Smith. I remember before he won a premiership with Penrith, the big deal was, if he's going to be in that conversation, he's got to win a premiership. Fast forward down the track, he's got 3 in a row.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Yeah. It's so, to have that playing career and now this coaching career on top, because he was always one of those players too that was, I think he was a top point scorer one year. Like, he was always those players in that, in those conversations, and
it was professional. Yeah. It was a professional.
Yeah.
And a professional as a player, and was very much a professional as a coach. He is a coach now that players seek to play for. And if you've got one of those in your club, you are in a great advantage in a salary cap era where players want to go to be coached by someone. And Wayne Bennett is obviously someone like that. Players want to be coached by guys like Craig Bellamy, Trent Robinson. They attract players to their club. I mean, everything's you cannot have a rosier situation than currently is the case with the Penrith Panthers. And as I said, you know, I've not always, you know, I didn't grow up as a Panthers supporter. I did support the Magpies as a child, and into the mid '80s when I started to be interested in Penrith because I knew some of the guys I went to school with. They were playing lower grades, and gravitated towards that. And the Magpies moved down to Campbelltown, so they lost that connection, and started, you know, being interested in Penrith. They were making finals of Amco Cups or whatever they were called by that stage, and I was going to those games. Then I started work in the area, lived in the area, and, you know, I've been following them for since the late '80s. So that's a long time. There's been some great times, and there's been some wooden spoons, and there's been some low times, but you cannot possibly have a better time than what it's been in living in 4 grand finals in a row, won 3. Who knows what the future holds? But even if they don't win another grand final in my lifetime, Graham, I have seen things
a golden era
that have just been amazing and brought.
You'd almost wonder how this grand final this year is topped. It's the 3 in a row. It's the fashion in which it was done, and the other thing is too, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I'm not saying the Panthers fans enjoy it because it's not going to happen, but what I'm saying is these for young Panthers fans really cherish these moments, because Broncos fans will tell you that a golden era can all of a sudden seem like a lifetime ago, because the Broncos coming into this, I think we're talking 2006 was their last grand final win. For someone like myself who, you know, in the 1990s as a kid, rugby league was everything. The Brisbane Broncos were just a juggernaut, and you just didn't think they were ever going to be, you know, that you just felt like the Broncos would win a grand final. You know, they won a couple in a row, and then there was a few more years, and they had the Super League one, and they won another a couple of years later. That was probably another 6 years, and they won another one. This is becoming quite a, by Broncos standards, this is becoming quite a drought here. I mean, we're heading towards 18 years where they haven't won a premiership. Before we, you know, finish on the grand final, there's still a few more things. I just wanted to sort of say the Broncos, for me and for a lot of people, I think, whilst they're losing a couple of players as well, a lot of people have commented on this Broncos team as being a year away. You know, I'm not a you got to lose one to win one kind of person. That's not what I'm saying, and I know people were saying that prior. But what I'm saying is, I think the run they've had this year and the experience of this year will make them a serious contender next year.
I see a lot of parallels, Graham, with this Broncos side and Penrith when they lost the grand final. They're a very young team, exciting, but learned so much. You don't have to lose one to win one. No. But if you do lose one, I think you're a better chance of winning one, because you have that experience and you have that burning desire to turn around what would be a devastating blow, especially when you were 16 points up. So that's going to burn with these guys. Yeah, I don't want to talk about next year just yet, but
I know. I keep.
yeah. Look,
I
the fact is that
know.
this is a great team, the Broncos, or potentially great team. Um, Arguably the most talented side in the NRL. You can mount a very good argument for that.
And
Before we
apart
move
from a
away, though,
couple of
Graham,
players, very young team. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So similar to the Panthers 4 years ago,
Yep.
I just want to maybe go through some of the players you thought, Graham, who stood out for you in the grand final. Not necessarily
Yep.
looking at the stats, but
No, the
who did you think, firstly, for the Broncos
Ezra
were
Man.
yeah, okay.
Ezra Man was, and yeah, Ezra Man was everywhere. The We've talked a lot about Ezra Man this year, and I feel as though I don't know if I'm listening to the wrong media out. I mean, I don't listen to that many media outlets, to be honest with you. A lot of my understanding of rugby league comes from watching the games, talking with mates that watch every game every week, and are hardcore fans like yourself. Uh, and I feel as though Ezra Mam just. I think he will be next year. I feel like he wasn't in people's conversations. It was almost like coming to this Broncos side. There was no massive hype about him coming in. He came in, and the expectation was for him to play a supporting role. It was like he was the supporting actor, and the stars were all around him. And there have been so many moments throughout this year where he has stood up and said, "I am a superstar." And that 10 minutes in that grand final, I'll be honest with you, and I know it's a big if and but, and you're going to say, yeah, but it didn't happen, Graham, and all this sort of stuff. I honestly thought that we would be talking tonight, and in that moment, during that game, in the middle of that game, I honestly thought that we'd be sitting here talking tonight about Ezra Mam winning the Clive Churchill medal, being the standout star, because it's 3 tries in a grand final. The way he was able to get through and use that speed and skill to get past one of the best defensive teams in the competition, I just think was just absolutely phenomenal. He's definitely up there for me. The other players, I thought, I'll be honest with you, do you know another player who I thought really stood up? And, I mean, there was a lot of stars there. I'll talk about Farnworth and some of the forwards later. But someone who had some really, really good contributions and some really mature contributions for someone that doesn't get a lot of the talk as well is Jesse Arthurs.
Oh, he was great.
I thought he was absolutely phenomenal. There were times where, they needed someone to bring the ball out of, the early on in the sets, get them on the front foot. I thought he was phenomenal. And obviously, you know what I think of this starting forward pack from the Broncos. I mean, there was that really good play. I think it was Billy Walters. It was still fairly early on in the game. He kicked that 40-20. Always been a massive fan of Pat Carrigan and Payne Haas through the middle. I thought Jordan Ricky had some good moments as well. But I'd have to say Ezra Mam was the standout for me. I also was really, really impressed with what Jesse Arthurs did, and I'm also, as you know, a massive Herbie Farnworth fan. And I thought he was phenomenal. What were your thoughts on Brisbane? Because you're at the game, and sometimes you get a bit of a feel for
I'll
how
tell you what,
things are going.
a lot of the time you don't get a feel depending on where you are, and like I was sort of behind the posts,
Yeah,
not a long way back, but because you're behind the posts at what essentially is an oval, you are a little bit of distance from the game. So
yeah,
when the play's down the other end, you're sort of watching it on the screen. Um, so yeah, it's not my ideal vantage point to watch from, but guys that I was sort of thinking, gee, this guy's having a good game. Obviously, man, but I thought Payne Haas
yeah.
was phenomenal, and just looking at his stats, 14 runs for 150 meters, 63 post contact. And I know he made a huge number of tackles as well. Just go to that. But 41 tackles with 100% efficiency. So he couldn't have done any more. Payne Haas. I thought Flegler was very good. And obviously, I mean, he scored that try. I thought he was good. The stats, not as impressive, but 93 meters from 10 runs, 27 post contact, and a line break. So I thought Flegler was very good. They're going to miss him next year, Tom Flegler. He's a really good, along with Herbie for the
two big losses.
They've done well there with those two guys. But yeah, Arthur's he was very good. Reynolds, yeah, I've heard a few.
He had some good moments, but I think
he had some good moments.
But he had some. I think a lot of. I think the choices with his line dropouts, I think, are going to overshadow some of the moments he had in general play where he actually was doing a good job controlling the team around the park.
Yeah, he'll look back and think, gee, I wish I'd made a different decision there. But
a few times.
I mean, he did wonderful things to get them there. But yeah, it was Haas, it was Ezra, Arthur's. Walsh worried me. I know he made a lot of mistakes, but whenever that guy's got ball in hand, you're concerned. And that massive step he put on, which led to the third try. I thought it was good night, Panthers. But they're going to be back next year, the Broncos.
Definitely. As far as... I think also, too, we talked a bit before it. Not to downplay their bench, but I think one of the things we highlighted in the preview was the how they go with that bench rotation, and I think that's one thing for the Broncos. I don't know if it's because their starting forwards are so strong, like it's hard to come on and replace, Flegler and Haas and whatnot. But I do feel as though you look at a side like Penrith, and we saw it the other night when some were forced changes actually for Penrith, but they were able to manage that a lot better.
Yeah, off the bench, Palacia. He had a really good game. 14 runs, 150 meters. So he's going over the 10 meters per run, which is, you can't really ask more from a prop than that. And 36 post contact. Carrigan, 159 meters, 53 post contact. So he did well as well. We expect that.
He's a world-class player.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Which adds more merit for a team to come back against these guys.
Yeah.
As far as Penrith went, obviously,
young Nathan.
We'll get to the grab at some stage.
Yeah, we'll get
Cleary. There. Yeah, we'll talk about him soon. I know we've already talked about him, but we have to add a little bit.
I think I don't think it's any secret what might be the grab this week.
I want to pay tribute to Jack Cogger.
Yes.
He changed the game, really. The game changed when late in the game when he and Nathan Cleary said it. He said he unlocked me. And Cleary was standing outside Cogger a lot of the time. Cogger was first receiver, and that, as you mentioned, Cleary's running game. It was Cogger who was providing the straight. He straightened up the attack, and then it was Cleary who, and we know we don't often see the running game. I've seen it in a lot of games because I watch him, but I remember a game he scored 4 tries, most of them from just not from receiving the ball from someone, but him basically with his own running game. He scored 4 tries against the Knights a few years ago.
He's the type of guy that will get the ball and he realizes it's the fourth. Almost flat-footed, looking around, going, "Okay, I don't want to get tackled with it because it's the fifth." Look up and go, put a step on and run through and score. Against the lesser teams, he's the type of player to do that. And this is where I wanted to get your comment too about how you talked about Cogger unlocking Cleary, and I think it's not a knock on Jerome Luai at all. It just shows that they have a different dimension to their game. And I think, without talking too much about the future and staying on this game, it was also one of those things where I've also talked to a lot of Panthers fans who have said, with all this talk of Jerome Luai maybe not being able to stay on, it also showed a lot of promise that, Nathan Cleary and it's not as though Nathan Cleary needs Jerome Luai. Nathan Cleary is an absolute superstar, and other halves will be able to come in, and this Panthers side will be able to roll on. Their success going forward isn't dependent purely on Jerome Luai being a part of this team.
No, but Jerome Luai playing injured, so he wasn't at his best. Because he can't be when you got a busted shoulder.
No, if it was round 8, you probably give him another couple of weeks.
Yeah,
exactly right.
And he'll have that he'll recover over the off season, and he's got a range of skills that are in demand.
He'll get a $1 million contract on the open market if he decides to go elsewhere, which you'd expect that maybe the way it is in this salary cap era, and we've talked a lot about the Penrith Panthers and this salary cap era. I really wanted to get your thoughts. I know you've talked a little bit about him. You called him the great Stephen Crichton. Going through players here, the obvious one there, Nathan Cleary. Stephen Crichton's another player that I think most people would have on their list coming out of this game as a standout.
Phenomenal.
This was his last game for Penrith. Just your thoughts on not only the Stephen Crichton, not only the try, his performance, but just his contribution as a Panther over, his career. And also, too, I think people who were a bit unsure about Stephen Crichton a few years ago and, downplaying his importance to the Panthers, he's one that's stood up at all levels of the game. He has shown that, at a club level, he is key. He's versatile. He's sort of that player where, if someone's out at fullback, he'll go back there and so on and so forth. But also, too, he's also shown that at State of Origin level, especially with some players who we always assume would get picked in front of him, there's been injuries, so on and so forth, but he's shown at all levels of the game that he is in that upper echelon and in that top tier of players in the NRL.
Well, I think he's the undisputed best centre in the game at the moment. I don't see him as a fullback. I see him as the world's best centre currently. I know he can play fullback, and I think he did a really phenomenal job for Samoa at the World Cup as a fullback. But when he's been with the Panthers, he's played fullback a few times, and he's not been at his best, including the World Club Championship earlier this year. I think I'm not sure if he played the first game against the Broncos at fullback, but he's a phenomenal talent. Physically, he's imposing. He's a big guy, tall, athletic. He jumps very well. He's not a super quick guy, but he's fast enough. But he's powerful, and we saw that he was able to brush off Katoni Staggs, who is known for his strength. You look at Katoni Staggs close up, he is a ball of muscle, that guy. Not very tall, but just amazing power from Staggs when you look at him. But Crichton got over the top of him. Staggs had a good game, but in the moment that mattered, Stephen Crichton, he overpowered him. He's a great goal kicker, Crichton. He's a clutch player. You could put a highlights reel of this guy that would match almost anyone in the NRL. this was his 100th game for the Panthers, this grand final. So I was very pleased for him that he got 100 NRL games. I am so disappointed he's leaving. The Bulldogs got him at a bargain, whatever they paid, because I don't think it was that much more than what he's on now. He wants to be a fullback. I don't think that's his best spot. He may end up there and he may kill it at fullback, but I really do think he is the world's best center. Defensively, he's very strong. He used to make quite a few errors, maybe rushing up, going for that intercept. But he's as he's developing his experience, and he's still only 23, Graham.
Yeah.
He is making a lot more right decisions on when to go, and he just smashes guys. He can chop them down with a legs tackle, or he can just smash them. They're going to miss him next year. They've got no one else like him. In that he's a really tall guy to go with the power that he's got and whatnot. I do wish him well, but I wish that he hadn't signed a 4-year deal. I wish he had signed a 2-year deal. Come back, critter. But even at the end of it, he's going to be 27.
27. He's probably got another 4-year deal in him after that.
We'll roll out the red, yellow, green, and black carpet to come back. You think about, put in context, Graham. Dylan Walker, I think, not Dylan Walker. Cody Walker, I think, made his debut at 26.
Yep.
For South.
Yep.
Brighton's only going to be, assuming he doesn't get injured and whatnot, he'll be 27. He could come back to the Panthers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But still be in the prime of his career.
That's exactly right. The prime of the career these days with the professionalism and the sports science in the game. 30 years old, it's now getting to the point where when you're 30, you're not over the hill and done and dusted. It used to be you're getting on the outer when you're 28, and by 30 you're done. There are players still showing great form into their...
Daly Cherry Evans is in the best form of his career, really.
Yep.
And 35.
And the next player I'm going to talk about, who I think was massive in this grand final, and if we were doing if there was a Carpool Rugby League, Dally M 3-2-1, I'm giving Moses Leota points out of this game. I thought he was phenomenal.
Absolutely.
28-year-old, Penrith Panthers player who's, been around for a little while now. And he's one of those...
I don't think he's that old, Graham. He played in the 20s.
No, he's not. You're right. He was in the 2015 New South
he was in that
Wales
team that won the
Cup, 2015.
Yeah.
I'd have to do the maths then.
Cleary didn't play, but he played all year.
No,
I think there was guys like Fisher Harris, Martin, Dylan Edwards was in that team. There are a few others who've gone on to play first grade at other clubs as well. But so Moses...
I'll have to double check that because I got him down here as being a 95 model from the 20 and 2015 as a part of that NYC squad. Anyway, we're splitting hairs. What I'm basically saying is that we know that props a bit later on to the career, but the point I was making is that we used to talk about players at this age, especially some of those big boppers being getting close to their use by date. He was up there. He was for me in the top few players in this game. Just his presence, his work for Penrith in the middle. He is a huge part of this Penrith Panthers side.
Oh, absolutely.
And I just, yet again another, I think he was a St Mary's junior as well, another one off the production line there at Penrith. But I don't know if you'd agree. It sounds as though you think he had a big game.
Absolutely.
Well, I thought he was huge. I thought
3 points Cleary, 2 Ezra Mam, 1 either Steve Crichton or Moses Leota.
Yeah.
I will say that James Fisher-Harris was phenomenal. The 4 props, Haas, Flegler, Leota, Fisher-Harris, all of them, you give them 8 or 9 out of 10. I can't recall a game where all 4 props have been absolutely outstanding. You can't ask for more. Fisher-Harris and Leota, they're not as big as the guys they come up against. They're powerhouses, but they're giving away probably 10 kilos to guys like Haas and guys in every other team. When they come up against Junior Polo, Reggie, you look at them and as they line up, and they're a lot smaller, but power-wise, no one ever gets over the top of them. They were phenomenal. I thought, as I said, Cogger was really good off the bench. I thought Luke Garner did a good job when he came on for the injured Tango. He was good. Dylan Edwards, I didn't realize it. I mean, you just because he just does it every week. But
standard 300 meters. Standard 300 meters.
Yeah. Now, a lot of them is kick return.
Yeah, but
but he's made almost
nearly other NRL
without the kick return.
The other NRL that's what I was going to say. Other NRL fullbacks are returning kicks as well, but they're not getting those stats. We say it every week on here. We sort of laugh, and I don't play Super Coach, but surely he's the bloke that everyone's got to have in their team. With just those running stats, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's an amazing, and I'm so happy for him that he's got a green and gold jersey. He still hasn't got a sky blue one yet, but maybe next year.
May not be far off. I was actually reading an article. He's a very loyal man. Yeah, I was reading an article here today. I'll have to double check if I got this right, but I have a feeling that Dylan Edwards is actually missing I think it's his brother's
wedding. Yeah, brother's wedding.
So obviously the timing's not great there, but it puts in perspective for people that don't necessarily play or follow how much this means to someone that he's representing his country, and he has been. This time last year, he was the best player in the game. He's been a big part of this team. He's a top quality player. It's well deserved. Well deserved.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to talk about that game later in the team, but just a source of immense joy. This team for me and for thousands of others, obviously. But I got to credit the Broncos for what a great performance, because to be in the best grand final ever or up in the conversation, you have to have 2 great teams, and these are head and shoulders above the rest. The Broncos, to be labelled a great team, I guess they've got to win a comp, but they may well do that with this guy. They're in a position to do it with the squad they've got. But I mentioned it last podcast. Both the Broncos and the Panthers in the semi-finals came up against number 3 and number 4 ranked teams, the Warriors and the Storm, and they both crushed them.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think we've ever seen that before, where both grand finalists didn't just win, they had crushing victories. And the Warriors and the Storm, they beat, they had a win in the semi-finals. Warriors had a big win from memory. I can't remember who the Storm beat. Might have been the Roosters in a good game. But those 2 teams were top 4 material and got smashed by both grand finalists.
Yeah.
And then and we saw the great grand final. So it was historic for so many different ways, and And I don't want to bore the listeners anymore, but a great, great game by two fabulous teams. And the Panthers they beat South. I've got great respect for the Rabbitohs. I know they didn't really come up to expectations this year, but they'll be back. Para, really good year last year. Lost a lot of players and didn't make the 8 this year. There were some reasons for them not making the 8. I still think they were one of the 8 best teams in the comp, but injuries and suspensions crewed their season. I don't think we're going to see the Broncos fall from grace. I think they'll be right up there next year, and I think they actually should be the favorites. I'm not obviously, I don't know what the markets are. I think Penrith are the favorites currently, but the Broncos really primed, I think, for the next few years to be right up there at number 1. But Penrith are not going to give that up without a big fight. That's it. That's the grand final.
The only other thing, I mean, obviously I'm going to ask you in a minute about the grab, but the only other top performance we haven't talked about so far is Adam G.
Yeah, of course. Apologies to King G.
Yeah. King G out there doing the hardjacker in the grand final. But there was a lot of talk going into the grand final. Is he the right man? I mean, a lot of people, I think we even used the term on the podcast, we're talking about him as the Stephen Bradbury. Everyone else fell over and he was the man that fell into his lap.
Yeah, I didn't agree with that. I didn't, I heard a bit about that, but I thought he'd been the best referee.
Yeah, and leading into it, he wasn't making the mistakes that the others were.
And one of the reasons early in the year was actually when the Panthers played the Broncos, was that quite significant moment when, as the referee, he said to the video guy, I think it might have been Ashley Klein actually, because he saw the replay on the screen. He said, "Do you want to just have another look at that?" There was the ball. I think it was a bomb that went up.
Right. And,
he sort of virtually overcalled the video ref, and I thought that was pretty impressive.
Something we've never seen.
No, well, it's sort of out of the hands. Like the on-field ref can just sort of wash their hands of a decision made by the video ref. So, well, that's not what I came up with. Play on. It's the video refs looked at it. We move on, type thing.
Yeah, and you hear that a lot. You hear that a lot as a justification. Look, we've reviewed it. That's a decision. Yeah. Even if they don't agree with it, they're just saying, look, So yeah.
It's an easy out. Really, yeah. It's an easy out. But yeah, I've got a huge rap on G as a referee. Good on him. He did well. I'm just trying to look at the penalty count. I know there weren't many penalties. I'm just trying to look.
Nor 6 agains as well. And
no, there weren't many of those.
And while you're looking at that, it's one of those things where I've been talking to people this week, and I said the thing that really indicates for me how good of a game he had was, for most of the game, I didn't notice he was there. And I actually think that's the mark of a good referee, when he's left it to the players to play football. He ensured that they were able to play the game, not only put on an entertaining show, but by him taking a back seat and saying, look, this is a grand final. We're here to crown a premier out of this, and to not interfere too much with it. There was a lot of common sense refereeing there, and I actually like it. There were aspects of the game that weren't refereed like a normal game. And It wasn't a normal game. It's a grand final. It's the biggest game of the year. They're there to find out who is the best team. And I think as a result of that, we saw a great game. It was very reminiscent.
5 penalties.
5 penalties, was it?
Yeah.
And it was very reminiscent for me. It reminded me a lot of Bill Harrigan's performance in the 03 grand final.
Yeah. Yeah. They talk about putting the whistle away. I don't know if you can ref like that every week because teams will take advantage, particularly in the holding down in the ruck and whatnot. But I was sort of saying to my mate, I said, he hasn't given us a penalty. Penrith got 2 penalties. They were both mandatory penalties from Adam Reynolds when he's taken the dropouts. One went out on the full and the other one, Cleary made a penalty by catching it with his foot down over the line. So in general play, Penrith did not receive a penalty the whole game. The Broncos got 3 penalties. But look, Adam G, take a bow. He did not decide this game. The players decided the game. And the players put on a phenomenal game. And you've got to say, you can't put on a phenomenal game if the ref hasn't had a very strong game. So 27 guys out on the field, including the ref. Take a bow. All 34 players actually did great, and the ref played his part. So well done. And that's cemented, I guess, him as the King G.
King G, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good sponsorship opportunity, and I know we've talked about all the big moments here, and look, this is probably.
Got to play the music, though, haven't we?
We've got to play the music. I think we know where this is heading, but just to finish off and just solidify it as officially going down in folklore as the 2023 Grand Final Griffo's grab. Let's make it official.
Griffo's grab!
All right. Well, Nathan Cleary.
Oh, who'd have thought? What more can we say?
What more can you say other than...
He did the talking on the field, didn't he?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he won. You can't say single-handedly because he had a team behind him, but he did things as an individual that got his team over the line in the biggest game of the year, in one of the greatest games of all time. He stood up when they were down and out. You mentioned the 40-20. He made the break, which set up the comeback try for Moses Leota. He got the ball out to Stevie Crichton for his try, though. I don't know if it was called a try assist, but that was largely Crichton making that try himself. And then with only a few minutes left on the clock, he makes something, as you said, like the Darren Albert try that is forever replayed, one of the great grand final moments. That try will likewise be forever replayed as the time when Nathan Cleary won the grand final for the Penrith Panthers, and in doing so claimed his second Clive Churchill medal.
Made history a lot of talk about so many areas.
Yeah, he made history. He made
so
history.
Many areas.
And as I said, at the game, I said to myself, I felt that I am here witnessing greatness. And long after I'm not of this world anymore, people will watch that moment and look, again, in the annals of history, think, wow, the great Nathan Cleary, look what he did. I came into this game of rugby league in the 70s, and I didn't know, I never saw Johnny Raper play. I never saw Reg Gaznia play. I did see Langlands. I did see Billy Smith from those great St. George teams. But majority of non-proven I didn't see. They were all part of history by the time I started watching, but I knew of them. I knew of the legend of those guys, and three of them are immortals: Raper, Gaznia, Proven. The history of the game. Of Clive Churchill. I never saw him play, but I know he was a great at the game. And obviously in the future, people will look back on the career of the great Nathan Cleary. Now, is he? The media love to talk it up. Is he an immortal or in waiting? I don't go for that. Like, he's not finished his career. He's not. He's probably only halfway there, if that.
Yeah, there's a lot of footy to be played, and
exactly. Yeah. But what he's done, if he were not to ever play another game of rugby league, he would be in the Hall of Fame of rugby league.
Yeah.
Which they do have a Hall of Fame. I think one day I'd like to go and see it. I believe it's at rugby league headquarters. They've got some sort of in there. Next to
Park.
Allianz, yeah.
That's
something I should, maybe in the summer holidays, maybe we could have a carpool rugby league excursion. See who's there, but
on site, yeah.
He will be there. He'll be in the Hall of Fame based on what he's already done in the game. Whether he goes to that next level, that's for the future. That probably won't be decided in my lifetime. But there's guys who've just finished their careers who will be joining that illustrious company. Guys like Cameron Smith, Billy Slater.
Joining. I mean, the Hall of Fame. You got players like Badiris, Stacey Jones. I'm trying to think of some more recent ones. Sivna Siva, Menzies, Stewart.
Yeah.
Cliffy Lyons, Fittler, Langer. So you got
Laurie Daly. Greats of the game.
Yeah, he's in that category
already.
For sure. Yeah, already at 25. Yeah. What are your thoughts, just very quickly? I know you're still talking about Nathan there, but just as a part of that discussion, there's been a lot of talk that the only thing really left for him to do now is at Origin level, is to win an Origin. Thoughts on that? I mean, people are saying, I don't buy into the immortal stuff either. People are saying, before we talk about him at that level, he's got to, do what he's done for Penrith for the Blues. Thoughts on State of Origin being a part of that assessment?
He's already won 2 man of the matches in State of Origin. He's won 3 series. It's not a flop at State of Origin level, but he gets criticised for not stepping up. Has he been at his absolute best in State of Origin? Probably not. Has he been very good? Definitely.
His best is a very high standard, though, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you don't win 2 man of the matches in State of Origin if you're a flop.
Or 2 man of the matches in Grand Final.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought he proved himself in the green and gold last year. I thought he was in the final. The world. He didn't win man of the match, but the man of the match gets selected a few minutes before, and that's something that galls me in any game of rugby league that goes for 80 minutes. You don't pick a man of the match until after the game's finished, because you may not actually win. And after they'd already said who the man of the match was, he put on another play. Either he scored himself or he set up a try. I thought he was phenomenal in that game. And again, he was being criticised early in the tournament. He was okay. His goal kicking wasn't at its peak, but I thought he played quite well. And then we saw his class in the final. I'm disappointed for him that he's missing the upcoming series, because he's only played, the only games he's played for the Kangaroos were in that World Cup. So he'll finish his career and he won't have actually played a huge number of games for the Kangaroos because there was COVID. Australia hasn't played all that much, and this was an opportunity for him. But the upside is that he gets time to recover from his injury. Hopefully, it's not too bad, and he's able to have a little bit of time off, and then start the preparations for 24. But yeah, he's a guy that is an amazing player. At 25 years of age, what he's achieved in the game is outstanding already. And as I said, if he were never to play another game of rugby league, he would be in the Hall of Fame with his achievements up to this point. It's a great honour to watch him play, and I'm glad he plays for the club that I support, because I know when Ivan was at the Tigers, a bit of the talk was about the Tigers trying to get Nathan to go over there. Fortunately, the Panthers were able to lure Ivan, and Nathan's future in Penrith obviously secured. He is the highest or second highest paid player in the game. He lives up to that tag. He's actually taken a pay cut from, I think, next year, which, I mean, he's still on good cash, but he's not getting market value for his talent. I think he might be on 1.2 next year. If he was on the open market,
it'd be record. It
would be a record. Yeah. But he knows himself that for Penrith to be successful, he can't take up more than that in the salary cap. Otherwise, they lose more good players. So, and a few other Panthers have taken a pay cut, or not necessarily, I won't call it pay cut, but gone for unders.
Would have got more on the open market.
Yeah. But you look at that and you think, well, that makes sense. What do you play the game for? You play it to enjoy it, but you play it for premierships. And if most people can live on about $750,000 a year. We're living on a lot less than that, and living decent.
Do that.
So yeah. But anyway, he's obviously the grab, and what he achieves in the future, I mean, who knows? But what he's already achieved is phenomenal. So well done him. But I want to again mention Ezra Mam as what a great game he had. What a great game from. He was man of the match. Cleary was man of the match.
Yeah. That was true. It was almost going to be the tagline was man of the match. Look, that it was a phenomenal evening. And it was one thing too, like not to go down a bit more political kind of path in regards to what we call NRL politics, and I mean, I still hear to this day, even though it's been over 20 years, people say, I want to go back, love the daytime grand final and all this sort of stuff. It was a very, very warm day, and I don't think we had too many people come 7:30 complaining that the game wasn't played in the middle of the day, in the heat of the day. So I actually think that was, one tick, one thumbs up for the nighttime grand final there. But one game we did see a little bit earlier on, while the right in the thick of the heat of the day, mid-30s in Western Sydney. It's the NRLW. It was almost like for the NRLW, they stuck to the script that we saw later on. All the predictions of Newcastle and Upton to get the medal, and then Penrith and Cleary to get the medal, all came to fruition. But I think we'd have to comment here on the NRLW Grand Final and the phenomenal season we saw from the Newcastle Knights. Also, the great season we saw from the Titans to get to the grand final, to take them on, but just the well, we're talking about absolute superstars. When we're talking about the female game, Tamika Upton is the biggest star in that game.
Graham, you're absolutely right. So many parallels, really, with the NRL game. Tamika Upton missed tackles on Jamie Chapman, or at least one tackle. Jamie Chapman, who had a phenomenal game, 3 tries for a losing team. Very much in an Ezra Mam type performance. And then with the team down, with not long to go, Tamika Upton stands up, scores 2 tries to get her team over the line. She was phenomenal. It was a great game. The Titans, fantastic effort from them. I got to the game. I might have missed the first 15 or so minutes. It was still 0-0. And my mate told me that, it'd been all Titans. They'd had the ball down on the Knights line. Knights weren't at their best, but got the job done. Weren't converting a lot of their tries. But, yeah, for most of the game, the Titans were the better side. But when the Knights were better, the better side, they scored a lot of points. Tamika Upton, there was one thing that surprised me that I saw, and that is that she hasn't played for the Gillaroos. She's going to be making her debut with the Gillaroos. I found that quite astounding. Undoubtedly the best player in the game, has been for a few years. And the reason why the Newcastle Knights won that game, like the Nathan Cleary performance to get his team out of what looked like a losing situation, Tamika Upton did pretty much exactly the same thing in that women's game, and deservedly so, the player of the match. And I think the best team of the year did take out the NRLW. Your thoughts, Graham?
Yeah, I thought that it was one of those situations where we were very much expecting them to be there at the end. We thought the Roosters would really push them, but I thought that the Newcastle Knights, they were phenomenal throughout the season. I thought they were phenomenal in this game. I just want to give a lot of credit to the Titans, because not only did we have the Gold Coast Titans as a team where we weren't sure if they were going to make the 4, and that they were the underdog there. There were aspects, where they really, pushed the top teams not only in this grand final but in the weeks leading up. So I think this season, not only that grand final on the day, obviously, we talk about Tamika Upton every week on here and how phenomenal she is, and the teams that were a part of it. There was a lot of concern about expanding the competition. I'm confident in saying that this was the best NRLW season we've seen.
I like the fact that it wasn't just 4 weeks, Graham.
Yeah, I think the length helped. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the women's game keeps going from strength to strength.
Yeah, I think it's I think that it's only going to grow. Obviously, the concerns are always going to be as teams get added, are we diluting the talent pool? What we actually saw, I feel, this year with the addition of teams, I was concerned about I was concerned about that. I wasn't sure if we were going to have enough talent to fill the teams. What we actually saw was the emergence of some really good football players, and it gave some of the players that we may not necessarily have had a chance to see get a go. There was some more superstars created, and what we're starting to see now is that, like we said, there are people who are rugby league fans, maybe not have got on board with the NRLW season in previous years, and you're talking to them now about your Tamika Uptons, your Tegan Berries, Isabel Kellys, whoever, so on and so forth, and people are really responding to the women's game. So I thought it was a really successful season, and that's the main thing I probably want to see is if we're going to progress with the NRLW, I think one of the main progressions would be the length of the season.
Yeah, I look forward to when the Panthers have a women's team. As you, I'm sure, look forward to the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, I'd love it. Yeah, and that's one of those things too. And we're big fans of this competition, and we don't have skin in the game, so to speak. We don't have our teams in there, and you know that we would support those teams like that. They would be our teams. You'd have the men's team, you have the women's team. As I know, there's friends of mine who are supporting the Knights NRLW and the Roosters NRLW and the Tigers and so on and so forth. So I think that there are some key clubs, like you said, like our clubs aren't represented, and I'd love for them to be so. And there are some big clubs in the NRL with some really prominent fan bases who are dying to get a representation in the women's game. And I think there's room there. The rate at which the competition expands is always going to be something that's hard to predict or to provide suggestions on. But it's heading in the right direction, and I think we're just going to see it continue to grow.
I hope so, and I'm confident will. A few, now I can't think of the names of players, but there's been a few ladies who've come across apparently from other codes and done well this season. Who names again that I can't recall off the top of my head, but you're trying to attract the premium athletes, and for women who are generally talented athletes, and watch that game and think, gee, I want to be a part of that. That's what you're trying to do, because we know that women's sport is on the absolutely rapid rise across so many different sports. We saw the Matildas really get the attention of the nation this year with the Football World Cup. Everyone jumped on board, and I know the AFLW is still going at the moment. I don't know much about it, but it's been around for quite a while now, and it's I think most teams now have, most clubs have a women's team. So there are these, and league and AFL were not really considered women's sports not all that long ago. They may have been played, but it was very much a fringe type of sport for women. And soccer's been a big sport for women for some time. Netball, obviously, in this country has been the main women's team sport. Hockey, we know that the hockey's been successful, but probably nowhere near the participation levels of netball, where Australia dominates and has done for some time, I believe. We won the World Cup of netball again this year, but it just sort of creates a ripple because we're just expected to. But these girls now, the NRL, they get massive exposure on both Nine and also to a lesser degree on Fox. And with that exposure, we're seeing, they get better pay now, which is good. And again, as pay levels rise, you attract the more talented athletes to your game. So it's a win-win situation. Well done to those ladies who were playing rugby league before, when basically it was just playing the love of the game. They were laying the groundwork for what we see today, and there's some of those ladies, I want to point out Steph Hancock. I think it's Steph, 41 years of age. She's been playing this game for a long time. Played for the Titans in the Grand Final. She's won Grand Finals with the Broncos. She's a pioneer of the game, and still running around. So good on her and her predecessors who. And we saw the women's game firsthand, Graham, when we were in New Zealand for the Auckland Nines, and we saw them in the airport. Didn't know much about them really, but we were astonished by they were probably the best games that we watched. They played three times.
Physical.
Belted the crap out of each other.
Yeah, that's right. That's the one thing we took out of it. The physicality of those matches were, unmatched.
That game has evolved. It's not, it's not that now. I mean, there's still that element to it, but now we see the wonderful athleticism of the girls. The skill level has improved. It's not just, okay, you're a larger lady, you can smash someone. Yeah. There's still that element, but that's not the focus of the game. The game now is skill and speed, so it's great to watch.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. Not sure if you saw much of the other game on the day.
I watched a fair bit of it.
State championship,
the television before I left. Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick thought on that one. Obviously, for mine, exciting that the Rabbitohs, whilst it's you got to laugh. People who know. Me and Shane and our family, it won't be surprised by this, but some people might think it's a bit of a laugh that we all got together with our Rabbitohs kit on and had grand final day, but it wasn't exactly the game we were hoping for. We were making jokes saying, "Oh, wasn't it nice for him to go back to a daytime grand final and so on and so forth?" But it was good to have, I know Penrith has been involved in this game before. It was good to see not only the New South Wales team successful, but from a personal point of view, having the Rabbitohs win that and the opportunity for some of the players who we've been talking about that have been breaking into the NRL side, such as your Tallis Duncan and Tyrone Munro, and Shaq Mitchell. Be able to get away with the grand final there. Your thoughts on that one, just quickly?
Yeah, I thought, my team for the day won. That was the Rabbitohs from New South Wales. Look, they were probably a little bit of a class above their opposition. Although the East Tigers, or Brisbane Tigers as they're now known, they gave it a good shot. The South team, a lot of first grade experience there. Some of the players you mentioned, Tallis Duncan, we know he's going to be a really good player. We know Blake Taff is a very, very gifted player. Munro has the makings of a great winger of the future. And those guys played a number of first grade games this year. You mentioned Shaq Mitchell, who's undoubtedly had his best year of rugby league in a Rabbitohs jersey. He continues to go from strength to strength. So a lot as a South supporter there, you would have been very happy. I mean,
yeah.
You want to see your team, irrespective of what competition is, you want to see them win, and they got the job done. And good on them, and congrats to the Tigers for they were in that game for a long way. I think it might have blown out a little bit. What was the final score, Graham? I had to leave before the end of the game to make my way to the ground.
The final score. You put me on the spot here. They got another try to get back into. I want to say, did we crack 40? 42-20 22, I want to say. The Tigers scored some points there.
So they won in the end. It was a fair score.
42-22. You only got to win by one in the grand final.
That much of a gap. I think they sort of second half started to run away with it a bit. But well done, Souths. Well done, Knights. Well done, Panthers. We didn't win the State of Origin this year as a state, but we scooped the grand finals.
Yeah. We're going to take something. That's true on grand final day. And, it was actually funny. I saw someone in the media say it wasn't a great weekend for Queenslanders too. That they had
they lost the
Brisbane in the AFL as well. So, and you mentioned before, it's actually, it's actually fitting you mentioned that because I'll be honest with you, I was one prior to the game. Now that we mentioned the AFL, I was one of those people that was a bit of tongue in cheek because it's always the running joke that the AFL get the better entertainment, and as a big Kiss fan, I wasn't helping it, but tongue in cheek, so I was saying to all my friends, it's like the AFL gets Kiss and the NRL's got a Tina Turner impersonator. It came across good on the TV. It looked as though the and the synonymous, I suppose, Tina Turner in Australia synonymous with the with rugby league and the campaigns, and finishing with Simply the Best. I'd imagine at the ground that was and that song has a lot of fond memories for me. Going to the football as a kid, hearing that song, that's what you would hear playing over the speakers walking into the. I remember being a kid in the early 90s walking into the Sydney Football Stadium and that song playing over the speaker, and that's what got you fired up and ready, and you knew you were at the footy. Just some thoughts because you were there.
No, I loved it. Like, some commentators sort of said, it was like being at an RSL watching a cover band type thing.
That's a bit disrespectful to the entertainment, I'd imagine.
Well, everyone's entitled to their opinion. My opinion was it was fantastic. The crowd got pumped up by it. That's the gauge. What is the reaction of the crowd? Like, you got 81,000 something people there, and they were pumped. Just before the grand final. As I said, I was pretty low key all week, even on grand final day. I wasn't pumped up or anything. Sometimes on those sort of occasions, I remember Origin games and whatnot, I'd be pumped from pretty early on in the morning. But I was low key till that started, and I saw the show on my birthday.
And
it was phenomenal. I'm not really a regular goer of theatre / musicals, but I went and watched it. It was what I asked my daughters asked me what you want for a present. I said, well, how about we go and see Tina? It was I really enjoyed it at the theatre. The night I saw it, it was a different Tina. Apparently it was like the stand-in Tina, different one to what appeared at the grand final, who was the main lady. She's an Australian girl, that Tina. But yeah, the crowd was pumped by, those. She sang 3 songs. What You Get Is What You See, which is the original. Was the original, the old Australian Rugby League, as it was, for the end. It was the original song, and then Simply the Best came the next year, and it was the flagship of the rugby league for many, many years, and without doubt the greatest ad campaign that the game's ever seen. The crowd was pumped. I thought, gee, this would probably look really good on TV with the quality of the performance, but what it means to rugby league followers who were around in that era. And obviously, Tina passed this year, and that's hence the tribute. Grand Final entertainment, it's hit and miss usually. I thought it was a hit personally. It led really well into the game. I didn't see Kiss with the AFL. I was sort of watching a bit of the AFL game here and there, hoping for a Collingwood win simply because they were playing Brisbane. And it ended up obviously a great game as well. And they're two great grand finals in the two premier sports for Australia in winter. I don't know how the ratings or anything. I haven't seen that info, but when both games are that great, you'd think a lot of the country's tuning in.
Yeah. So look, it was a successful grand final, successful day. It'll go down the books as one of the greatest of all time. Like everyone's just talking success. There's no controversy over it. It's really good to see. So, we're now rolling into the off season, and we've still got some footy left to play. The big talk will be the Pacific Championships. There's actually footy starting this Saturday night. So the Pacific Championships, we've got the Kangaroos taking on Toa Samoa. We've got the Kumals from Papua New Guinea and the Cooks from Cook Island all playing this weekend. One game Saturday night and one game on Sunday. Just first of all, I know that since we've talked last, the Australian Kangaroos squad has been announced. Few players not available, injuries, so on and so forth. Just want to get your general thoughts on the players that make up that squad and some of the key ins and outs for those who haven't really been following it, because there are some big names that are missing.
There are big names missing. There always are. Generally, we see players make themselves available for World Cups. This is not a World Cup, but the notable omission for Australia is Nathan Cleary. The notable omission for Toa Samoa is Jerome Luai. There are other guys missing, but they're probably the biggest names that aren't there. Mal, as I mentioned earlier, he's a very loyal man, and he that was his mantra when he was the very successful coach of that Maroons team, who won whatever it was, too many in a row. He stuck with the guys that had done the job, and he's done that with the Australian team. That no one, I think, believes that James Tedesco has been in the top probably 3 fullbacks this year. He'd have Walsh, he'd have Ponga, and he'd have Edwards at least ahead of him. But Mal had him as his captain last year. He did the job. Mal sticks with him. I'm sure he'll do the job. Dylan Edwards comes in as a winger. His job essentially will be to do what he does for the Panthers, and that is run the ball back. He has played on the wing a little bit, but he's a fullback playing winger. The Hammer has swapped colours. He was with Samoa in the World Cup. He's now with Australia. But he's been one of the best players this year in the NRL, whether it's in the centres as he played for Queensland, where he was outstanding, or in his best position at fullback. We know he's an excitement machine. Katoni Staggs, last year I believe he's with Tonga. Now he's a Kangaroo. I don't like that swapping and changing, but it is what it is. He deserves his spot in the centres, given the availability or unavailability of some other guys. But Staggs has had a great year. Cobbo, I can't recall why he missed last year's World Cup. Maybe his form dropped off a bit, but we know that he's a phenomenal talent, and I'm sure he'll get the job done. Didn't have his best game in the Grand Final, but we know that he is a potential superstar. Cam Munster hasn't been at his best recently, but again, we know he gets the job done, and he was there last year for the Kangaroos. He's in the conversation as one of the best players in the game. Daly Cherry Evans deserves his number 7 jersey. He's, as I said, he's gotten better with age. I wasn't a big rap on DCE a few years ago, but I pay credit to him. He's a very good captain for the Queenslanders. He was the best halfback in the series, and he's been really good for Manly this year. So well done him in getting the green and gold jersey back. Up front, 2 guys who have Samoan heritage, Haas and Big Tino, both great players. Interestingly, the hooker Ben Hunt says he doesn't want to be a hooker when it comes to club, but he's happy to wear the number 9 for Australia, and deservedly so. I think we saw him in the World Cup last year. Liam Martin is the best second rower in the game. Cam Murray is one of the best back rowers in the game. They make up the second row. Graham, any insights into the fitness / health of Cam Murray? I know he's had his injuries this year.
Nothing that I know. That hasn't been reported. I think he's one of those players too that has had a few injury concerns. It was hard to tell also at the end of the year, because there were times with Cameron Murray, like obviously he's a quality player and has been playing good football this year, but there were times when South Sydney were down on form, and there were also aspects where you're thinking, oh geez, Murray may not be 100%.
Yep.
All we can assume, I suppose, is that he's in this team this week. He's starting in the second row. Is that he's fit and good to go. But this year more so than others, I think it's starting to the way he's
tired.
The way he plays, I feel like I've been thinking for a couple of years now. I'd often say to people, he's the type of guy that's, obviously when I talk about his career, obviously not his life, but, that live fast, die young, that play hard and burn out early. And I think this year we started to see, after a few years under his belt, it catch up with him a little bit, because you can't go at that intensity week in, week out without it, having some sort of impact. But yeah, he's one of those players where I think he's going to, as the only Rabbitoh in this Australian squad, I think we're going to see, when surrounded by other quality players, I think we'll see the best of him. So
he's outstanding. He's a great player. I'm a little surprised, I guess, given the injuries and whatnot, but we saw him come off the bench in the World Cup, and he was phenomenal in that role. But yeah, I guess there's a few guys who aren't. We've had a bit of a dearth of second rows this year, and we talked about it in a podcast a few weeks ago. Martin has been the standout in the second row. Isaiah Yeo gets his lock position there, ahead of Pat Carrigan. Either of them can do that role. They're both great players. Carrigan off the bench. Lindsay Collins, we know, has at representative level been outstanding and very good for the Roosters late in the season. Ruben Cotter, I think he was the Wally Lewis medal winner this year, has to be there. Can cover prop, lock, second row if need be. and Harry Grant. It's an all Queensland interchange there. Interestingly, yeah, it's a good side. It's a good side. We know there's a lot of guys not there because of injury and whatnot, but a couple of guys who didn't make the squad, the NRL Player of the Year in Kalen Ponga and arguably the NRL Player of the Year, Reece Walsh, wasn't eligible for the Dally M because of his suspension, but interesting they don't make the squad. We see on the extended bench there Hines, who came in as a result of Nathan Cleary's injury, Jake Trbojevic, Tom Flegler, who hasn't played for Australia previously, Valentine Holmes, very interesting, of course, with the goings-on of Val Holmes. Hasn't had his best season, but we know he's a great talent. Well, how do you rate the Aussies? The 1 to 7.
I think it's a phenomenal team, and I think it just shows, obviously, from the point of view the depth. You can have that many players missing and still have the high quality players you've got. And I think that was highlighted when you were talking about the likes of Tom Flegler being in the reserves. I think if someone said the best Australian team right now 1 to 17, okay, there's players missing, but this is still it's a phenomenal team. It's still one of the best international teams in the world at the moment. Australia's one of those countries where we've just got so much depth and talent and superstars at the moment in the game that when you got a player like players like Dylan Edwards and Katoni Staggs, Cherry Evans as the backup halfback, it just shows that we're spoilt for choice, and I think it's a phenomenal team regardless of those that aren't necessarily available.
I've just seen something. I'm looking at the Toa Samoa team, and I was quite shocked when I looked at the number 6. Have you seen that lineup, Graham?
Toa Samoa, they've got Stevie Crichton at number 6.
I can't believe that.
You look at it. There's some names in that team, though, isn't there?
There are. Well, obviously, they're missing some talent. Luai would be in that jersey, but Stephen Crichton at 6. That's I don't. I think Ben Gardner is the coach now. He's the assistant coach at Penrith.
Yeah.
So he'd know about Steve Crichton, but he's out of position there. That's not his skill set. Anyway, the young Farlongo, he's a precocious talent from the Storm. He's playing fullback. Can't argue that. Murray Tuolongi, he swapped the green and gold for the blue and white. He was in Australia's World Cup squad last year. Now he's with the Samoans. Again, I don't like that concept, but it is what it is. Tango, hopefully he's fully recovered from his injuries, but I'm not sure on that. Young Tonamapia was quite good for the Storm, but then his form dropped off late in the year. Toto is arguably the best winger in the world. I'd have Crichton in the centres rather than at 6, but that's how they line up. Dejan Arce had a good year for the Eels when he came in, particularly to replace Dylan Brown. Forward pack, our man, Gordon Chan Kong.
There he is,
cometh
international superstar.
Chan Kong Tong, man. So good to see him there. Big Stefano, he played a game for the Blues, as did Paolo, who was part of the Blues. He's wearing the blue and white of Samoa. So they're two good props there. It's some big humans wearing the 8 and 10 of the two teams, all of Samoan heritage. Yeah. Then Luciano and Luciano, I don't think he had his best year, but he's a good player. I think I really like Connolly Lemuelu. I thought he really went well for the Dolphins. Keenan Palacia, mentioned him earlier. I thought he was very good in the grand final. They've got him at 13. They've got Spencer coming off the bench. Terrell May was really good for the Roosters. The Bloon, I don't know if he's represented Samoa before, but I'd have the Bloon ahead of Luciano as a second rower. And then you've got Ronald Volkman, who is a half on the bench there. Will we see him start and maybe Crichton to the centres and maybe Tonamapia to the bench? I wouldn't think that's a bad way to go. Hunt, Matamua, Marju, and Tommy Talau on the extended bench there. What are your thoughts, Graham, on Toa Samoa?
Yeah, they've got a good team. I mean, obviously when it comes to this game and picking a winner and looking at who I feel is going to come out with the victory, I'm obviously talking Australia here. I think it's definitely going to be an Australian win, and it could be a very hefty one at that. But there's some exciting players and some good players there that I'm really keen to look at. We've talked a lot on the podcast about Tulangi Tungo, Brian Toto, world class. Very interested to see how Crichton goes at 5'8". I think there'll be a lot of responsibility on him to run the ball, to take the line on. As you said, he's out of position. That's just a case of, look, we've got one of the most talented players at the moment, informed players in the world. Let's get him in a position where he gets a lot of ball. But I like their forward pack. I think they're gonna lay a good platform. There'll be some.
Well, they're big.
They're massive pack, and like I said, there's apart from the Kangaroos, there's no other side really in this competition with as many NRL named players in it. But we'll see some good spots here and there from Toa Samoa. But look, I just think that with the quality of the Kangaroos, it's going to be very hard for us to see anything of note from these guys as a team. But the Samoans have proved us wrong before.
This is a replay of the World Cup final.
It is. It definitely is. So, look, what are your thoughts on this one? Is it going to be as clean cut? I mean, I'm predicting a big Australian win. Am I being a bit unfair to Samoa?
No, you're giving your opinion. Yeah, I don't know about the balance. When I look at Stephen Crichton in the number 6 jersey, I think, I'd actually look at it and think, okay, Dejan Arce, you're essentially a 5'8". Ronald Volkman, you're a half. Play there. Crichton, you're the world's best centre. Play in the centres. That's how I'd go.
Yeah.
I mean, their forwards are strong. Forwards are very strong.
Definitely.
Including what they've got on the bench. Lenu, Terrell May, Helam, Lukey.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, look, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be very entertaining. The other game, Sunday afternoon's the other game, the Kummels and the Cooks. This one here, this is another game where we're going to see sprinklings of NRL players throughout. It's very hard to comment on this because there are a lot of players I don't know much about. But there's some names there, like Alex Johnston, who actually I don't know if we've talked about this before. Alex Johnston's actually released a children's book. So it's sort of, I have to laugh. It's sort of the story of this. It's called A Footy Tale, and from what I understand, it's the story of this basically this team, which is represented by a rabbit, taking on challenges and so on and so forth. So it's a bit of fun if you've for someone like myself who's got a little fella that likes me to read him books at the moment, it's definitely one I'll be looking to pick up in the next
very good.
couple of weeks or so. So yeah, definitely worth a mention there. A bit of a plug for him. But I don't know if you've looked much at these teams here for the Cook Islands and PNG. Just want your thoughts here. I was flicking through and like most people, I think picking out the players that I'm familiar with. Your Nene McDonald's, Lachlan Lambs, Jack DeBellin playing for the Kummels.
Yeah, he's got
as well.
Grandmother was born there or something. I'm not sure, but he qualifies. So
yeah,
there's probably more NRL talent in the PNG side. Johnson, obviously. I don't know that one's his spot, but I guess Xavier Coates missing. I'm not quite sure. I assume he's injured. But he is a PNG guy. Zach Labert made his debut. Did some good things for the Cowboys. Nene McDonald, we know he's got talent. He's played for a number of clubs. Lockie Lamb had a big year over in the Super League. Jacob Alick, again, one of the Carpool favourites. Thought he was really good for the Gold Coast. He's in the second row. Jack DeBellin. The hooker, I can't remember the guy. He was hooker of the year in the World Cup, but I don't think he's made this team. It certainly wasn't Judah Rimbu who's listed there, but he plays over in the Super League. And unfortunately, his name escapes me. Justin Olam can't make the team. Number 21. Reece Martin, who's been a mainstay of the PNG side over probably 5 or 6 years, can't make the team. So it must be a decent. There must be decent players that they've got there. Smattering of NRL, of current NRL players only in the Cooks. They normally call them the Cookies, but they're just listed as the Cooks now.
The Cooks.
So they'll be trying to come up with a recipe for success. They've got the Masters cousins there, neither of whom I think played NRL this year, Isan and Stephen. Brad Takarangi, I thought he'd retired, but he's number 6. Was he playing in the Super League? Or?
Yeah, he spent a few years in the Super League.
Okay. Yeah. Davey Mawale is a current NRL player with the Rabbitohs, of course.
He is, yeah.
Makahesi Makatoa, current sort of NRL player, seemed to fall out of favour at the Eels. Zane Tedavano's coming back from the Super League to play in the second row. We know him as a prop. I think probably we see PNG, the Kummels, get up here. But good on the Cooks for they're trying to advance their cause to make the next World Cup. They didn't make the top 8, so they've got to qualify. I think I read somewhere that there'll be one qualifier from the Northern Hemisphere and one qualifier from the Southern Hemisphere that's not already there. So the Cooks will be working on that recipe to get into that next World Cup. The Kummels, I think they made the top 8, so they're already there. Thoughts, Graham?
Yeah, I'm a bit... As I said, there's some players here that I know of. There are some players that I'm not as familiar with. I think this is just going to be one of those games where it's hard to give anyone an indication on form and so on and so forth. I think it's just going to be. I think it's going to be an entertaining game, and you've got a mix of players who experienced players, and you've got some young players there who will be using this as an opportunity to get some eyes on them, and you know that with these two nations that they're going to be very very keen to represent their country and give their all. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be A really, really entertaining game with some good footy. And also too, just before we finish up tonight, we've also got to mention that the Pacific Championships. We talked a lot about the women's game. There's also the Women's Pacific Championships. Gillaroos, Ferns, Samoa and Fiji. I think the Gillaroos taking on the Ferns on Saturday, if I'm not correct. Griffo, not sure if you've had a
6
chance
p.m. Yeah,
to have a look at those teams. But coming out of the NRLW season, we're very familiar with the form of a lot of these players, and we can see, especially with the Gillaroos and also to the Ferns, we've got some really good talent there. With the season of NRLW under their belt, and they're right in the thick of things, which is great to see.
That Australian backline looks pretty good, doesn't it?
It does. I was just looking at that then,
Chapman,
thinking,
Sergis, Kelly, Julia Robinson.
Robinson was really good this year.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked enough about her. I know we mentioned her here and there, but geez, that's a good team. And even some of the players you're looking at, as you go through the forward pack with, we've talked a lot about Koenig and Apps in the second row as Samai Mataufa. I mean, she's another one who's really put her hand up and put her name out there as one of the players to watch. I think this is just another case of it's going to be really entertaining, and I'm really hoping that the Gillaroos can get the job done here, because I think there's enough talent there to get the job done.
Yeah, they've been the dominant nation now for a while. The Australians. It used to be that they were always struggling to beat the Kiwis, or the Ferns as they're known. They've dominated recently. It's still, there's some good players in that Ferns team. Mele Hufanga, who was outstanding at the World Cup and very good for the Broncos, she's there. In the centres, they've got Racine McGregor, who was not this year, but the previous year, the Dally M winner. Ash Quinlan's been very good in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's going to be competitive. And then we move on to Fetu Samoa up against the Fiji women. Now, I don't know a lot about either of these teams, just having a look at them. There is obviously a number of players who played this year in the NRLW. I know the Fijians had a few girls, but I know some of them were injured. The Tigers girl, very good. She played State of Origin in the junior girls, was outstanding. The 5'8", the name escapes me, but she's not there. Well, smattering of more of an NRLW list there for the Fetu Samoa. I think they'll probably win this game, but for those who weren't in the NRLW, this is an opportunity to put yourself out there and jag a contract for next year, because obviously clubs will be looking at this and trying to fill their roster. So this is a good opportunity for these girls to put themselves out there and maybe earn a contract on the back of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that I think this will come back to what we were talking about before. I think it will show that there is some depth there, and there are some talented female players that we may not have seen yet. And I think this opportunity for the international football is going to bring that to the forefront. So I'm really excited about it this week. This plenty of football happening. I mean, who'd have thought, the season's over and here we are with all this football to not only talk about but to look forward to. But I think really all that's left to do now is to sit back this week and watch the international games and
we're not watching the boxing or the Koori Championship. So.
Yeah, well, that was the other thing we were going to talk about, and I was almost going to bump it for time, but we might as well talk about it. At the top of the show, I talked about the extracurricular activities that we're seeing in the NRL. We'll give it a bit of a discussion here because we have seen some examples of this more prominently in recent weeks. We've just had, as we always do around Grand Final time, we've had the Koori Knockout, which is a great community event, especially for the Indigenous community. We've also seen, as a result of that, I mean, probably the most prominent story coming out of that is the one involving Josh Addo-Carr and the implication then for Australia. We've also, as you mentioned there, we've got NRL players who are interested in taking up boxing matches, and just I suppose a comment here on the impact it's having on, from the club's point of view, I suppose, Griffo, we've got players looking to do these other activities where there is a high risk of an injury or, suspension in the case of Josh Addo-Carr. I know that you've got some opinions on this one.
Yeah, I believe that if you're a professional rugby league player, that's what you are. You play professional rugby league in the NRL, or if your team's lucky enough to make it through to the World Club Championship, that's what you play. And I believe that it should be in the contracts of all NRL players that if you want to play in the NRL, you will not be a boxer. You will not go and essentially play park football, irrespective of your culture. You can go along, you can be part of the event.
Yep. Ambassadors, so on and so forth.
Ambassador, whatever. But you're not playing. You're not playing. Because, as we've seen, Tyrell Sloan picked up a syndesmosis injury. Now, it's not going to stop him from playing Game 1 next year, but it's going to set him back a long way. And Coach Flanagan would have targeted him and be putting a lot of work into him to improve essentially his strength and his defensive game. We know he's sort of a brilliant attacking player, but essentially he can't tackle. That may be a little harsh, but we've seen lots of examples of where he hasn't been effective in defense, and he's now unable to train. He's got an injury, and we know that Cindy, when she comes a calling,
she comes, yeah,
you might be out for 6 weeks or so. So the Dragons would be livid with what's happened. We've seen Josh Addo-Carr involved in some sort of brawl, and obviously, if you're an NRL player, you got a bit of a target on you. Guys who just gonna say, I'm gonna take this guy out. I'm gonna show him, that I'm just as good as he is and whatnot. You're open to that, and you don't need to be. You can be part of an event without taking part. Latrell pulled out of the Kangaroos because of a finger injury. Apparently, he played about 10 minutes with the blessing of his club. If I was a South supporter, I would not want Latrell playing with an injury. Given the number of games he has missed for the Rabbitohs through both injury and suspension. I know they want him happy. They believe that's the way to go. That's treat him with kid gloves. And it may be best, but the reality is they didn't make the semis this year. One of the reasons they didn't make the semis was because they didn't have their highest profile player for a lot of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And I applaud Latrell. He won the Ken Stephen medal. Obviously, he does great work in his community. That's to be applauded, but he doesn't have to take the field when it's just not necessary. Give him a jersey, make him part of a team, but he's non-playing. And that's nothing to do with, anything. I don't want to be, seen as being, you're offending a culture here. You can be part of an event without taking part in the event and still being, experiencing your culture. Like, I go and watch the Anzac March. I don't march. I'm still part of it. It's part of my culture. But I don't have to march to be part of it. I don't know if that's.
I think what we're going to start to see is we're going to start to see clubs. Because, especially with this Josh Addo-Carr thing, I know it's affecting more so the international landscape and it's at the end of the year, but I think clubs are going to be more wary of the dangers of this, and I think this is going to be the next step possibly in the professionalism of our game where we're one big, massive superstar away from being injured for this not to happen anymore. I think that it's rather than it being a big thing, and we haven't had that big impact happen yet to a huge player where it's someone does like Latrell doing an ACL and being out for a year for South. I think it's going to be a bit more of a snowball thing over the next few years, and I think that I think that teams are going to be more aware of it, and it might be part of contracts and agreements going forward.
Well, I think
because you even think of
the teams out of it. Just the NRL's got to say, every
you
contract,
and your contract registered with the NRL. That's their brand, and if you get injured playing NRL, that's a different thing. But also too, looking at their main assets, they got to protect their assets. The NRL, I suppose that's one way of putting it.
You have to.
Yeah.
It's not. It shouldn't be. Oh yeah, the club gives you a blessing to go and play. Don't put it on the club. Just say, all right, look, you want to be an NRL player? This is what it means.
Here are the conditions.
It means you are only an NRL player. You don't go. They're not allowed to play touch footy. They don't go and do things like that. You don't play anything else other than this. What you're being paid to play. If you don't like it, fine. But you're not an NRL player then.
Yeah. I think in years to come, you're going to see a lot more beyond sport, just even high risk activities and things that potential for injury put in there. Because, I totally see the merit in it, and it's not about like you said. I think you made it clear that especially with the Curry Cup, it's not about taking away that representation. It's about representing in a way that's not going to compromise the the athlete's ability to perform their job for their team.
Then the other side is this whole boxing. I mean, it's ridiculous. I believe, and I'm not 100% sure, but this is what I heard, that Tamalolo did not or is not part of the Tongan squad, pulled out of that so he could have a boxing match. Big Nelson, I think he had a box, or he's going to have it. I don't know whether it's happened or not yet, but Why? Why is that a thing? You want to be a boxer? Retire. Be a boxer, like Tavita Pangai Jr.'s done. Or you wait till your career's over, like Paul Gallen did, and you have your boxing career. You can't be both. You cannot be both. Like, you are an NRL player, that's what you do. You don't want to be an NRL player, that's okay. That's okay. But you're not an NRL player for 8 months of the year, and then you're a boxer. And I just think, again, it's not something that a club, okay, for example, let's say a guy is choosing between two clubs. One club says, yeah, oh, you can go and be a boxer in the off season. The other club says, you play for us, you're not boxing. It shouldn't come to that. It's just NRL. This is in your contract. You will not participate in any other sport that potentially puts you at the risk of injury. And if you don't like it, don't sign the contract to be an NRL player and take the cash.
Yep.
This is a fully professional game, and we're seeing things that are not necessarily professional from some guys.
And this is where rugby league has always had that aspect of, that the big professionalism you see in sports. And I know we're talking bigger money, but you couldn't imagine this happening with an English Premier League player or an NFL player.
No.
They'd look at you if you're mad. They're going, no, you're
Mbappe. Oh yeah, it's the end of the season. I'm going to go and fight Lionel Messi.
I think you're ridiculous. Mad. Yeah, so I think that's just somewhere where the NRL need to understand that. Yeah, there are stars there, but play the hard line, because these are assets you need to protect, and if not, put the money and effort into someone who's going to commit.
Exactly, and I mean, Pangai Jr., he's made a decision. He's left the NRL to be a boxer, because he doesn't like coaches and halfbacks telling him what to do.
He wanted to be his own boss, and he's too big to be a halfback.
Unfortunately,
all the power to him. Good luck to him.
That's his decision, and I respect that.
Yep.
I respect his decision. Such a wasted talent in the end, as far as his NRL career goes. But he's made a decision, and if he goes well, good on him. If he doesn't, a lot of people say we'll see him back in a year.
Soon, but
I don't know if we will. I don't know if another. I mean, he's been to a few clubs, and anyway, he played State of Origin this year, and I guess that's one of the things that poor old Freddie can look back on and think, well, maybe I didn't make the right choice there. Freddie, who's no longer the Blues coach. That's something since we last had our last podcast. Maybe by the time we do our next podcast, we'll know who the new coach is.
Could be, yeah. That's yeah, and that's a big watch this space. I think that's going to be a big talking point over the off season, and even possibly early part of next season. But I think, considering that it's, people will be saying, "Gee, it's the off season," I think we've done pretty well to cover what's going on. Obviously, the grand final was absolutely phenomenal, but there's still plenty of football to look forward to with the internationals on the weekend. Don't forget this weekend to tune in and have a look, because there's going to be some entertainment, but also too, it's great to support the international game, because that's something too that we've been talking about for a long time. That it is something that really needs to be supported and celebrated, the international game of rugby league, because without the growth of the international game is one of the key elements for the long-term success for this sport.
So I think the Gillaroos game is 6, and then the Kangaroos might be just after an 8 o'clock kickoff. So Saturday night is the big time for these internationals.
Yes, so I think, it's a doubleheader at Townsville.
Yeah, well, good for the people of Townsville.
Yeah, great to get out there. It's a good stadium they got there at Townsville. It's one on the list to visit and see a game of footy at. But for now, I'm content with the Carpool Rugby League. And basically, we're just looking forward to the footy this weekend and having you guys on board throughout the off-season. Thank you so much for being on board, and enjoy your week.
Thank you, and Graham, you've led the team well, as always. Listeners, thank you for being with us. We'll be back, not necessarily on a weekly basis, but from time to time, certainly while these internationals are going on.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.